It's absolutely massive. Uh, think about this: eight WalMarts, eight WalMarts of weapons, eight frickin' WalMarts of every weapon known to man, and it's from everywhere in the world, including China, but not Russia. Russia was not invited this year for obvious reasons. So it's just absolutely incredible. I was overwhelmed, and you have to have an app to find a particular booth. Well, there's 17 between 1,700 and 1,800 booths. Imagine the BMO Center. Imagine four BMO centers. That's how big this thing is. I've never seen anything. I've been to AUSA in Washington D.C. and it's big, but it is not like this. And this is the weapons central, and it happens every 2 years. People come from all over the world to make deals, to study the weapons and the new technologies, which are just, you know, I don't want to say exploding, but basically that's the pun. The technology is absolutely exploding for weapons, and it's just a massive industry. I had no idea until I came here just how incredible it is. It really is something.
I guess, it's just that mixed thing. I mean, it's fascinating on how much tech advancement we have and things such as that. But at the same time, leave it to us with humanity that we get our most creative when it's finding ways to obliterate each other. But,
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, yes. It's new ways to kill people. However, let me say this. The one thing I learned, I took a poll from all the arms dealers at the show, and I asked about Ukraine, and I asked, it's a sensitive question. Not everybody wants to answer it, but basically, Europe has woken up. Ukraine has changed everything. Europe has woken up, and now there's more demand, there's more budget. Germany, that has not spent much on defense since the Second World War. Everybody said Germany, Germany, Germany. They're spending incredible amounts of money, and they boosted their budgets. It's just incredible. And they're saying the demand is up. There's still competition out there, but demand is up, and it has absolutely changed the world. And when it comes to, I talk to ammo dealers from all over the world. There, I talked to several. I concentrated. There was two areas which really interested me. The Israelis and the Turkish are really coming on. There you see a nice lady there displaying a Turkish gun with a silencer on it. Very nice lady. And then you see the Elbit precision weapons. Well, I talked to her, and she said, yes, we are dealing with Ukraine, and of course Turkey is sending them drones, but also Elbit in Israel is just doing incredible. It's changed everything. The fellow from Elbit told me that studying what happened in Ukraine, everybody's looking at that. Everybody. And they're all thinking the same thing. It's going back to basic military strategy and weapons. Do we buy tanks? Are tanks obsolete? Now, what you're looking at is a robot tank, a mega robot tank. It has to be controlled by a human being. But right now, in future, it may have artificial intelligence, and it may decide who to kill on its own, raising questions about friendly fire. How does it determine a friendly? I asked everybody, how does it determine a friendly or foe? We're working on it. Everybody told me the same thing.
That's
We're
almost so
working hard. Because this thing can identify a threat in seconds, milliseconds, and end it just like that.
Well,
so how in the hell, if you've got your troops on the ground, how can you tell? Do they wear a badge? Do they wear a patch? What the goddamn hell do you do when you've got this is a monster? I mean, look at this thing. This is the Terminator. This is the Terminator.
Yeah,
this
from RoboCop. I mean, so it kind of shows also just the new front of military and battles. I mean, if we got things like this and unmanned drones and a lot of remote military hardware going around, hackers are going to be more powerful in some ways than we've ever imagined. Because if somebody could manage to get control of those things, even a guy in a basement in India could suddenly take over a division of an army. I mean, they better make sure they can figure out their controls on this stuff.
Loitering munitions, drones that can fly around and wait until they see something or you see something and you target it, or it can come back and land. There might be, okay, you see that one on the right? That is a suicide drone. That thing on the far right is a suicide drone, and if it hits you, it's over. And that thing can, and that's made in Israel, and that thing can fly, forever. And if you want it to come home, it'll come home, and it'll turn on its back, and it'll have a little parachute and a little cushion, and it'll fall, and you can use it again if you don't find a target. Now, what's better, to have a drone or to have a pilot up there who could get killed? That thing is just, and it's exploding. I in the Israel area, I must have seen like 7, 8 drone companies. And then I walked down the aisle and I found an Israeli jamming company that can jam drones, and then has a weapon that you can hold and actually shoot the thing down. So, I mean, there's weapons and there's counter weapons, and that's the game of the future, and it's being played out. You can see that. You can take a look at that. That's not a 50 caliber. That's bigger. That's bigger. That thing is on the top of a robot tank, and it can see you, and it can, you know what I mean? I mean, it's the strategy and technology of war is changing, and it's just amazing. It really is. You know,
So
and yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, actually, it's one of our commenters, Carrie, saying, AI will be our doom. I mean, we dehumanize some of what these, equipment does, but we do have to remember the target on the other end is often going to be human casualties. So, I mean, you're not putting a soldier at risk in the air or on the ground, but you're out there to destroy somebody somewhere. It's pretty chilling.
It is pretty chilling, but this is, unfortunately, this was mankind. It's never going to be, I mean, I would like it to be a Disneyland world, but it just isn't. It's filled with, you got a bad dude in Russia who's just changed the world and has put the fear of God into everybody, especially in Europe. They've woken up. Budgets are rising. It's just, it's amazing. But let me say this. I talked to one Turkish fellow who, their company does a lot of things, including armored cars. And I said, okay, is Ukraine good or bad? And he said, well, there's a lot of negatives. He said, first of all, inflation. It's driven inflation. Costs are up. There's a loss. There's the price of fuel has gone up. There's no grain. There's no grain, and a lot of those grain goes to African countries. Shipping containers have skyrocketed, and the basic of disruption of trade and cyber attacks. Bam, 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 bam. You've got all these things happening, and it's changing the whole landscape. I mean, on the good side for the arms dealers is that demand is up. Demand is up. That's not necessarily a good or bad thing, because competition will still happen. But like I say, Ukraine has changed the world. Some people didn't want to talk about it. Some people wouldn't say 2 words, but some guys just said, yeah. It's like, do we buy tanks? Should we? And how do we protect them now? Because we're looking at seeing what's happening in Ukraine. How do we protect those things? And it's about this again. These Israeli companies, precision-guided weapons. The only country who can get away with dumb bombs is Russia. They're the only country. Nobody else can do that. Everybody else has to go by the rules, and that is precision weapons, so that you don't have collateral damage. Putin doesn't care. So, but Russia is the only one who does that. Everybody else got to play by the rules. And it's all about precision guided weapons. And I posted some. There's some there that have GPS and that are just amazing and will hit direct targets. And this is only one area. I mean, there were so many. I just decided to concentrate on a couple because it was just too overwhelming.
Well, you encountered some other stuff too. Was it a robotic dog you ran across in there?
Yes, yes. And I got to tell you something really funny. I got to tell you something really funny. And I've got a kind of a scoop for you too. I got a scoop for you too. There was a robotic dog, and it walked around and everybody. But the one thing that was common to everyone who saw this dog wanted to pet it on the head. And it's a robot. It's a dog with a little face and two little eyes. Everybody who came out, I took some pictures, but it's on my camera. I couldn't send it to you. But everybody wanted to pet it on the head, and I just thought that was hilarious. It's a robot, you know what I mean? But the urge of a human being, is to pet this thing on the head. So that was just kind of a bizarre thing I witnessed. But let me tell you about a fairly big scoop that I came across. There's a couple. I want to mention, and one of them, unfortunately, due to their security reasons, they won't let me write about it. I'd love to, but I can't. And I can tell you it's a country in Europe, but I can't tell you where. And I can't even tell you the name of the company. They don't want anything. Everything was off the record. But this is one of the biggest security companies in the world, probably the biggest. And nobody knows a thing about them, and that's the way they want it. And these people do security for 80% of the world's airports. Their machines detect everything, everything. Think of it. 80% of the world's airports have their equipment. Who else has their equipment? The White House has their security detecting equipment. The U.S. Secret Service has their secret detecting equipment. And not only that, but also Air Force One that guards the President of the United States has the equipment, the security detection equipment of this company. And they want to stay under the radar. They said you can't write about it, but they didn't say you can't talk about it. So I'm telling you now, this is one of the most incredible things I found at the show. Unfortunately, I can't tell you anymore because of journalistic ethics, and I gave my promise I wouldn't. So, but this is an absolutely incredible company, and they've come up with new detectors to the Russians, for example, in Ukraine, are leaving booby traps in houses, and they put it under things, under carpets, and they're called crush wires. And ISIS also use these to booby trap homes, and they put them under carpets and stuff. And the Ukrainians are getting these detectors to detect these weapons. So I just found it really fascinating.
Yeah, well, and that's a different end of things, I guess, more in a defensive end, but you can see why it's very proprietary or why they're keeping it tight too. Because again, I mean, as you said, if we're talking somebody who's dealing with 80% of the airports and things like the White House itself, I mean, if you get yourself into that software, you could, again, it doesn't matter how many old out-of-date tanks a country has on the ground somewhere else, they can bring a lot of the world to its knees again from a computer on the other side of the planet. It's kind of scary to think.
And again, this company also gives detection equipment for metal detection in the food companies around the world. When food is processed, occasionally a piece of metal will get in that food, and they can detect it. They can detect anything. This is one of there are competitors and there are other companies, but this one I think is probably one of the best in the world. And Canada actually bought some. I think it was General Vance, who said, look, I want to protect my boys. And he said, I want the best. So he bought about $100,000 worth of these landmine detectors. This is going back to Afghanistan. And when the feds in Ottawa found this out, they went ballistic. How dare you? How dare you spend $100,000? And Vance said, you know what? I did this to protect my boys, and I have authority to do that. So to hell with you. He might have said a little stronger, but he said, to hell with you. We're buying these things, and there was a right choice. And I'm not defending General Vance for any of the other stuff, but he looked after his men, and that was a wise decision. And that was this company that I can't name, unfortunately. So,
Well,
but okay, go ahead.
oh, I was just saying, so kind of going a little further in the whole thing. So there's some really interesting, very high tech, very targeted technology there, things like that. One of the commenters was asking though about costs. I imagine it's not like Walmart. There's not going to be a price tag hanging on out front of it when you get there. But this is pretty. I imagine some of this technology is very, very expensive for countries to acquire.
Extremely expensive. Extremely, it's big bucks. And it's getting more and more expensive because it's also high tech. I mean, it's just again, it's all about this multi domain, or where you can, an F-35 can talk to a ground station, and a guy will have a 3D glasses, a captain with his troops, and it can all be, everybody's talking multi-domain. Everybody's talking to each other. Well, that's expensive. That's expensive technology, and that's where it's headed. It's about information, the sharing of information, and how to do it without it being blocked by an enemy. And it just is getting so incredibly sad. Well, okay, just to tell you, maybe your listeners don't know, but we're buying F-35s, right? And we haven't signed the deal yet, but we will sign the deal in the fall. Okay, well, I don't know how many going to 88 or however. We got to buy these things. Everybody bought them. Italy bought them, for God's sake. And so we have to buy them. But the helmet, and the containment helmet has to be custom fit for every pilot. Can't buy it off the shelf and put it on. Oh, you're a size this? No, no, no. Custom fit. And that helmet alone costs more than a Ferrari. The helmet alone. So the expenses, and we're walking into that, and we're going to have 88 of them, or supposedly, and fellows to fly them. Whereas the American Air Force is now getting into these AI aircraft that will fly along with the pilots and act as a wingman. It used to be Tom Cruise and a wingman. Well, no more Wolfman. This is going to be a robot flying next to you. But believe it or not, that is cheaper than training a pilot and losing a pilot. Also, too, that's something that's where it's all going.
Yeah, well, it's pretty wild stuff. So, have you encountered any other fellow Canadians? I guess most of the people who would show up at those would be working for their military departments, their bureaucrats. They wouldn't be recognizable or anything like that. They're working their deals.
No, no. And one thing I did find out that I didn't know. I didn't know that 2 years ago, Canada bought drones from Israel, and it's called the blah blah blah. What's it called? It's called the Starliner. It's called the Starliner, and it's huge. It's massive. This is not a little drone that you buy at Costco. This thing is massive. It's huge. It can stay up there for 36 hours. It can fly at 25,000 feet. And Canada signed a deal to buy them. I didn't know that until I talked to the Israelis. I said, what? What are you kidding me? He said, oh, yeah, Canada and Switzerland both bought them. And I said, well, why did we buy them? And he said, according to the Canadian government, they bought them because what was the reason? For monitoring the ice pack, for reconnaissance of the fisheries, and let's see, what else did I write down here? Fisheries, wildlife surveys, and reconnaissance, and also monitoring the Arctic ice. Who knows what else it's going to be used for? But this is no ordinary drone. This you will not believe. This is a drone that has been cleared to fly in, in by NATO and by the Canadian government and by the Israeli government to fly in regular airspace. It can fly in regular airspace. It knows how. It will report and it will let you know where it is. It'll let air traffic control know. Unbelievable. This thing can fly. And to get this approved, they had to make it able to land and take off in 0 weather. This thing can land in 0 weather where a pilot can't. This thing can actually do it, and it has satellite linked up. It's also it can handle. It has the technology to handle lightning strikes, and I mean, it's just this thing is absolutely unbelievable. And we bought them. I had no idea. So that was a cool discovery that involved Canada.
Well, before I let you go, I know you got to get back to your beer and cigar and touring out there. Anything else you'd like to add from your Paris term or tour there?
Well, it's just nice that there are more good people than bad. I had the experience of being, my phone, but maybe I was kind of naive and leaving it in my Costco cargo pants pocket. Somehow the guy got it out and lifted the Velcro flap and got it out, and I didn't even feel it. So this guy was good. But there are more good people than bad in Paris. Paris is a great place to come and visit, and also Eurosatori has just been absolutely amazing. I learned, I learned so much from everyone, and I took a poll from just about everybody. And like I said, some would talk, some wouldn't, but they all said, I said, is demand more? They said yes, demand is up, and there's more budgets in Europe, and so there's going to be, this show is probably, the world has changed, and this show reflects that. And again, the French are a fantastic hosts. They were great all the way. The concierge at Eurosatori tried to help me in every way, and even said, look, we'll buy you a phone. Do you want a phone? Well, I have to pay for it, but they said, we'll get you one for, you want 100, 200 euro, we'll get you one. Where else can you get that kind of service? And so it was a great experience, and I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have seen and learned all the things I did. So 2 thumbs up for Eurosatori and Paris.
Well, thanks for sharing with us.
I'm waiting for my red wine. I ordered Vin Rouge, and she still hasn't brought it.
They probably don't want to interrupt the broadcast, perhaps. They're too polite.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but thank you for giving me this venue, and I hope I shared some interesting stuff to your listeners.
Yeah, no, it was great, and I appreciate you starting with a positive note and ending with a positive note, because we know there's a lot of dark material in between there. So it's pretty interesting and informative. Yeah. We'll have to hook up and chat when you get back here to the land of the snow and ice.
Okay. Thanks, Corey. Thanks again. Take care.